going? Okay, so this is the long-awaited update since, you know, I do these every, I guess, year now. I'm coming out of semi-retirement because I've gotten a lot of requests for this kind of video, so this is for everyone who asked me specifically. This is basically going to be the 5 reasons that I decided to leave Korea. These are not the only reasons, and I also had plenty of reasons to stay, which is what kept me there for 4 years. But it eventually, you know, one started to outweigh the other, so I decided to come back. So let's get into it. So the first reason that I decided to leave Korea was that I was starting to feel like the call of the wild, I guess you'd call it. I know my parents, we always call it itchy feet. It's a family trait, I guess. And that's just the need to like uproot yourself and put yourself somewhere else. It's the same need that I felt when I graduated college and I initially decided I wanted to come to Korea. I wanted to, you know, learn about another culture. I wanted to experience so many new things. I wanted to make friends with other cultures. After going to Korea and living there for 4 years, I was finally starting to feel like I had done what I needed to do. I started to feel the reverse pull to go back home. Like the homesickness started to come in waves. Usually I would evaluate myself and be like, no, I'm not ready. I still have things to do. I still have things to learn. And those last 6 months, I was feeling like, you know, I think I'm done with this. I need to make a new checklist and set up new goals because I've reached all the goals that I had when I first came here. The second reason is that while I love teaching English and it is so rewarding and the kids are so cute and it's so fun, I never really imagined myself as a career English teacher. I'm not saying that I won't do it again in the future, maybe, you know, somewhere else if I start to get the itchy feet pull again. My degree is originally in advertising. So I was starting to want to look for jobs in my fields. That's one of the reasons why I went to Sogang University to start to learn Korean seriously. And unfortunately, when I started looking into actually getting a job outside of the teaching field in Korea, it is not easy. These days, because it's getting more competitive, usually they require a master's degree. And I wasn't really interested in getting a master's. And then they also a lot of times require 2 years in your field. And I only had internships in advertising. I just went straight to Korea. So if I had wanted to get a job outside of teaching English, basically I would have had to become fluent in Korean and business Korean specifically, which is a totally different beast. And then I would have had to go back to the United States, get a job in my major, work in it for 2 years, and then transfer back. Unfortunately for me, that was not really, in my head, worth it. So that was part of it. I kind of was done teaching English for a little while, and since I couldn't go anywhere else job-wise, I was starting to feel kind of limited. Number 3, this is gonna sound kind of silly, but I was starting to like feel lonely, I guess. Of course I miss my family, but like the longer it went, the more I missed them. And you know, things are happening and our lives are all changing, and I didn't want to miss out on too much. When you're gone for 4 years, you've already missed out on a lot, you know? And then along that line also, romantically, I was starting to hit a wall just because I always knew I didn't want to stay in Korea forever. It's a lot harder to be an older white person in Korea than it is to be a younger white person, and so I didn't really want to grow old in Korea per se. So if I had married a Korean man, I would have had to convince him to come with me to the United States, which would have been very difficult, and a couple of guys that I had dated never even seemed open to the idea of leaving Korea. So that was kind of frustrating. And then also any guy that I dated who wasn't Korean, it would have been the same thing. I would have wanted to come back to Louisiana, and they would want to go back to whatever place they were from usually. So it was kind of a futile exercise, and I was starting to get kind of bummed about it. Like I wanted to date a serious nice guy, and you can't really get serious with anybody when you know all of your relationships are going to have an expiration date or like a horrible long distance period where you're not sure if you'll be able to make it work. So that definitely played a part in me moving back. I wanted to date somebody who wasn't gonna leave in, you know, 6 months and break my poor little heart. Number 4 is the language. And I studied Korean and I got to about, I guess, you know, lower intermediate before I had to quit for financial reasons because that was expensive. Oh my gosh. I was not prepared for how expensive that was. But learning Korean was really difficult, and it wasn't that it was really difficult, it was that I started to get the feeling that no matter how much I learned, I would never be good enough, I think, for to make myself feel happy, basically. I would never be good enough to feel comfortable constantly speaking in Korean at all times. And it got pretty frustrating towards the end, you know. It really wears on you when you study and study and study and study and study for over 8 hours a day, and you're definitely gaining knowledge, and then you sit down to watch a drama and you still don't understand 50% of it. Like, it's so frustrating. So I have so much respect now for people who, you know, have to live their lives in a second language that they learned as an adult. I can only imagine what they're going through on a day-to-day basis and what they had to go through to get to that level. Like, yeah, some people are just good at languages, but I'm certainly not one of them. And I know a lot of people who are in that situation aren't either. It's just diligence that gets them through. I basically got to the point where I wanted to have conversations in English because I never felt like I could have the conversations that I wanted to have, those like politics and philosophy and like very interesting kind of introverted conversations that a lot of people don't like talking about, and specifically a lot of Koreans don't like talking about. Those are the things that I love to talk about. So I was getting kind of frustrated being limited to talking about kind of shallow things based on my vocabulary and based on cultural norms. And then the last one, number 5. Number 5 is flat out, it's a cultural thing. I was starting to miss my culture. And once again, like, I also have so much respect for people who are immigrants and they choose to live in another country forever with a culture that is not what they grew up with, because it is really difficult, and you do have to have a very flexible, understanding personality to understand why people do things the way that they do, why it's different than yours, and to accept it as what they do. And I did that. I did that for 4 years, and I totally understood why they do the things that they do, but it didn't make me miss my culture any less. And I think another part of it was that before I left Korea, I hadn't accepted my own culture yet. Being from the Deep South, being kind of stigmatized as uneducated and interbred and quite frankly stupid with silly accents and things like that. I think when I left, I wasn't quite ready to accept that was what I had been brought up into, because it wasn't true. Like, plenty of people, most of the people I know are highly educated or, you know, smart in other areas, and they're understanding and sweet and wonderful people. They're not all like racists, you know, who like want to date their cousins. And living in Korea, accepting someone else's culture, I started to realize that that I was Southern, and I started to take pride in the fact that I was Southern. And for once, I remember, I guess it was maybe a year ago, was the first time that I actually got offended when someone said that, like, oh, you're from Louisiana, like, is your brother also your husband? And before I would have laughed it off and been like, ha ha ha, you know. But I actually got like offended, genuinely so. Like that was rude. And that was kind of a turning point for me, where I was like, I've learned to accept Korean culture, it's time to accept my own. So me coming back home ultimately is me getting in touch with my roots more so, I think, than anything else. Finally accepting where I was born and raised, who I am, and who I'm meant to be, and taking all of those memories and experiences and wonderful things that Korea has taught me, and using it to make myself an even better, more interesting, knowledgeable, understanding person. And I will always thank Korea for helping me achieve that. In conclusion, I still recommend that people go to teach in Korea, and I'll still be making a few videos here and there about my experiences in Korea if you guys want to ask me about that. But I do plan on morphing my channel into more of the things that I learned about my own culture and about Louisiana specifically, since I've been rejecting it for so long. I actually don't really know that much about my own Louisianian culture. Yeah, my channel is gonna, I guess, evolve a little bit into more of a southern style, but still vlogging, still talking about my life. And if you guys are still interested, you know, subscribe, like, whatever. And I will see y'all next time.